Hello and welcome to the podcast. My name is Mel and I'm actually editing Mel. The following podcast was recorded a few weeks ago, close to the beginning of the summer, but until now hasn't been edited. But I didn't want to waste the footage and have to re-record quite a lot of finished objects and so on for the next podcast. So I'll be recording a more up-to-date one in the next few days, but in the meantime I will pass you over to Past Mel to tell you more about what I was doing at the beginning of the summer. Hello and welcome to the channel. If you are new here, my name is Mel and I am a crafter, knitter, sewer, living on the Orkney Islands off the north coast of Scotland. And if you are a returning viewer, then welcome back and thank you for returning. It has been a few weeks since my last podcast recording session. It has just been a little bit busy. I can talk a little bit more about that at the end, but my youngest is here for the summer and it's just been, you kind of get out of routine and stuff like that when you have visitors. So I have quite a few finished socks, I have some new cast-ons, and I have even some sewing. This is a finished object that I'm wearing. It is sewing, but I will talk about sewing after the knitting content. I have some older whips that I brought back into circulation. Doesn't seem like the right word. They have become active whips rather than hibernating ones. So let's see. I have project bags and piles of stuff everywhere. Last time I recorded, I'm not sure where I had got up to. So I do have a finished object yarn wise as well, but it is crochet and I'm just going to mix in crochet and knitting together. I finished my Rainbow Ripple, I think that's what it's called, Rainbow Ripple baby blanket, but it's not for a baby, it is for me. Although I'm sure someone somewhere out there would argue that sometimes I act like a baby. That's not true. I just know what I want and when I want it. So I finished the blanket though, and I am really happy with it. It has come out fabulous. It is about maybe 3.5 feet across. It is perfect as a lap blanket for watching TV on the sofa and for just being a bit cozy. And I'm really happy with it. I really enjoy doing it as well. It's the first bit of crochet I have done for quite some time and it was really enjoyable. I found that with crochet I can't crochet without looking, so I have to watch what I'm doing all the time. So I found it was very good for podcast watching, you know, like knitting podcasts, so you don't have to constantly be watching the screen. You can do a bit and you can look up when necessary and things like that. But it wasn't very good TV knitting where you want to be TV crafting where you constantly really want to be watching what's happening. So knitting was my evening project and this was my podcast watching in the day kind of project. The yarns that I used, well, first of all, I should tell you who the pattern is by. The pattern is a free pattern on Ravelry and it is by Celeste Young, and it, like I said, it is the Rainbow Ripple baby blanket, which looks completely different in pastels. And I possibly wouldn't have even considered it except I had seen Kay from Crazy Sock Lady knitting this crocheting this blanket even in this same yarn, a different colorway, and I thought that's perfect. So the yarn that we both used is Lion Brand Yarns Mandala, and I've used the colorway Centaur, and it wasn't quite how I thought it would be colors wise. I'm not sure how well it's going to show on camera, but there's kind of like a little chart here at the side and the colors are much more dull, I would say, and there's almost, it doesn't show very well even to look at, to be perfectly honest, but there's kind of a purpley colour in it that's, when I looked on the screen and on this label, it looks more of a, like a purple, like a, almost a maroony side of purple, but in the yarn it's much more of a blue purple, which was a little disappointing when it arrived, but to be perfectly honest, it does look really nice in the blanket, so I'm not too bothered, to be honest. This took 2 whole cakes of this yarn, and these are 150 gram cakes, and all I have left, I do have my leftovers somewhere. It isn't very much at all, and for some reason I can't find it. Oh, there it is. All I have left is this small amount. I wasn't sure I was going to get the final round, but I had just enough, and yeah, I figured if there wasn't enough I'd have just ripped out the final round, because with it being crochet and it hasn't got a specific finished edge on there, so you just crochet until it's as big as you want, I could have just ripped out a part round and finished on the previous round. So that worked out fine. I'm really happy with this yarn. It's kind of got a chenille feel to it. It is 100% acrylic, which is perfect for soft blankets because they can be just thrown in the washing machine as necessary and you won't have to think too much about it. So that is my main finished object for this episode. I have some smaller ones. Some of them are repeats of previous ones. So if you've been here before, you'll know that I was knitting some face cloths, and I have knit a whole load more, a whole bunch more of them. They're blowing out on screen because the sun has decided to come out, but I've knit a whole bunch of them. I used up all of the cotton yarn that I had bought and knit as many as I could. I used a variety of yarns. I've got Kinkle Cotton Soft. That is the minty green ones that I've done. We've got, what else have we got? We've got, this one's all folded up. This one is, I have no idea. What is it? Surdor Cotton. For some reason the main one is disappeared. There we go. Surdor Snuggly. I'll try and get through these as quick as possible. That is the pale pink ones. I've got Drops Belle, which is the only one that isn't 100% cotton. This one has linen in it as well. In fact, that is cotton viscose linen. I have Sheepy's Cotton 8, which I hadn't realised was fingering, whereas all the other yarns are DK weight. And I also have Kinkle Cotton Smooth, which is the coffee coloured one. The Sheepy's is the yellow. So I used different size needles for the different yarns. I used 5mm for the Cotton Soft and the Cotton Smooth and the Drops Belle. Yeah, so they're all on 5mm needle, held double. And for the Sheepies and the Surdor, I used a 4mm needle, and again the yarn held double. So I also did 16 stitches both sides for the 5mm, and I used 18 stitches for the Surdor and 20 stitches for the Sheepy's yarn. And all of these are a pocket style with a little loop. I finished the edge, instead of casting off I did a crochet chain cast off and a little loop at the end of the cast off to hang them up to dry as well. I have tested my first batch of these. Haven't tested these ones because I don't need to test them, but I did test the first batch, and to be honest I didn't find a whole lot of difference between them. So any of the yarns work well. I wasn't sure which I would like. I think the smoothest is the Cotton Smooth, which is a mercerized cotton. I'm not sure if that will show on camera. It looks more linen-y on my little screen, but I found the Cotton Smooth, as the name suggests, was the smoothest. The Cotton Soft has a lot of extra fibre pilliness going on. I would not use this in baby clothes. There's too much fibres. It's kind of like cotton wool. But other than that, they all worked well. Even the Drops Belle with the linen in wasn't overly rough on my super duper sensitive skin, which is another reason I haven't recorded for a while, because I've been very self-conscious of the fact that my skin is in very poor condition at the moment, which is really showing up on camera today. It must be my settings, so it actually looks worse on my screen than it actually does in the mirror, which is a bit annoying, because I even went to the effort of putting powder on this morning, which I never wear, but hey ho. And I used up the last of them just to make a multicoloured use it up one. I started out with 5mm and then I switched to 4mm to finish out with the pink. So it looks slightly warped, a little bit, but they're just face cloths. So now I have a whole stack of them, including the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that I knit before in the different yarns. I now have all of these, and I think that's plenty to keep me going for quite some time. I won't need to knit any more for a while, but if I do, I know any of these yarns will work perfectly well, so I'm happy with that. All I have left is a little bit of the cotton soft, and I used every other scrap of the other ones up, which is brilliant. I like using up the yarns. In fact, this is going to sound really strange because I just bought yarns over the last few weeks. I know I increased my yarn stash, even though I said I was still on a yarn semi-diet this year. That has kind of gone out the window. I have bought more sock yarns. But the irony of it is that I go upstairs into the hobby room and I have my wall of yarn, and it stresses me out now to look at it. I think it's because I have quite a lot of yarn associated with certain projects that I plan to make. The vast majority, I'd say a good 70% of my stash is allocated to projects at some point down the line, and I think why I'm getting a little bit stressed with it is because I never get around to using that yarn for that project. It just feels like it will never get done, and I don't know if it's just my strange brain, but it's stressing me that I've got all this yarn that's not using, because I'm one of those people that like to use things up. 1 minute, I'm about to sneeze. Am I gonna sneeze? I did need to sneeze. So I am one of those people that likes to use things up. There's nothing worse than having a container of something with a little bit in the bottom. It bothers me. I want to get it used up, and if I can't get around to using it up, it bothers me. My husband is the complete opposite. He will use something until it's nearly finished and then start something new because he doesn't want to run out or finish that thing. I know, it's funny. Anyway, so my yarn wall is kind of stressing me just a little bit, and then I go buy my yarn because I have no self-control apparently. So other finished objects are mostly socks, and I know socks are not the most exciting topic, although I don't know, I watch Crazy Sock Lady and she knits almost exclusively socks, so there we go. I have 4 pairs to show you this episode, so I will get through them as quickly as I can. I think I have 4 pairs. I have 4 pairs. So where shall we start? We'll start with the brightest, I think. There is no other reason other than they are the brightest. So if you've been here a while, you'll know that I am doing a box of socks for this year and trying to get through knit at least 1 pair of socks each month. It has been considerably more pairs of socks, mostly because I've been really enjoying knitting socks. I haven't really been in the mood to knit things that are more complicated. I've just wanted something for my hands to work on, and socks to me are really relaxing to knit if they're plain, if they're vanilla socks, and all these here are vanilla socks. I have got some patterned ones I'm going to knit in the next few weeks, but it's just been relaxing, mindless knitting. So I will talk in detail of the first pair, and then after that I will whiz through them because they are basically the same pattern. So my vanilla socks, I like to do toe up. I like to do a Turkish cast on, and depending on the yarn I will cast on 60 stitches or 64 4 stitches, depending upon the yarns and depending upon the needle size that I use. This one, I'm not sure, this one might have been 32 stitches on a 2mm needle. So generally speaking, if I use I like to do magic loop for toes, heels, cuffs, and I like to use a 9-inch circular for the body. If the yarn is on the thinner side, I'll use a 2mm circular needle, and I will do more stitches, so I'll do 64 stitches. And if it is more of a commercial sock yarn, I usually do a 2.25mm needle, circular needle, and will do 60 stitches. Sometimes I'll adjust that if, for example, some yarn seems to, you know, like bigger or narrower or whatever. So Turkish cast on, this one will have been 64 stitches, I think. I'm not 100% sure, but I do a Turkish cast on, vanilla sock, knit plain, and then do the gusset. I do a heel flap and heel turn with eye partridge on the heel turn and stockinette on the heel flap, because I'm at home most of the time, so my heels don't really wear out. Stockinette again, and a 2x2 cuff with a stretchy bind off. I have a whole sniffly nose now that I've sneezed. Apologies. So if I do a 2mm needle, then I like to do 60 rounds before I do the gusset, and I will do 15 stitches on either side for the gusset. And if I do a 2.25mm needle, then I like to do 55 rounds to the gusset and do 14 stitches either side of the gusset. I know if you don't knit socks, that might not mean much, especially with the gusset, but if you knit socks, you might know what I'm talking about. And then I like to do a 40 rounds on the ankle before the cuff, and then 20 rounds of 2x2 rib. I used to do slightly shorter legs and a longer cuff, but I'm much preferring the fit of these now. I used to like them slightly shorter, and I used to do 25 rounds, and I find these just stay up nicer. So yeah, this yarn is very bonny. The yarn is by Siobhan's Crafts, and the base is lovely. I have knit another pair of socks in this base before. There is her logo, Siobhan's Crafts, and she does really brightly coloured yarns. Her sock yarn is 85% superwash Polworth, 15% nylon, and the colourway is Orange Popping Candy. I really like this base. It is, for hardiness wise, it's more like a commercial sock yarn, which I really appreciate. But you're getting best of both worlds. You're getting something that's much hardier, but at the same time you're getting an indie dyed yarn, instead of just your usual, you know, commercial colourways, which I really like. And she does have some really bonny colourways. She is a British yarn dyer. And for the heels, toes and cuffs, I've used a combination of 2 undyed yarns. For the toes and heels, for hardiness, I've used Reggie's undyed yarn, which you can buy, you know, you can buy the undyed yarn, which I am really liking for contrast yarns, as you'll see with another pair of socks I have on my lap. And for the cuffs, I'm using up some merino bamboo yarn that I have undyed. I made the mistake of using some of this once for toes and heels. It doesn't work. I wasn't thinking. I was very early in my sock knitting journey, but I am using it up for the cuffs, just to use it up basically. But it works fine for the cuffs because it doesn't get any wear, and you know, it's undyed yarn. So that is the first pair, and the most detailed that I will talk about. I'm really happy with them. They will be going in my box of socks. I don't remember which of these socks are actually from May and which ones are from June. I think these were May socks, and I think my other pair of May socks are the next ones I'm going to show you. These are just Drops Fable, and the technique is exactly the same. This is commercial yarn. This will be done on a 2.25mm. I also use 2.25 for all of my toes, heels and cuffs, regardless of whether I use a 2 or a 2.5 on the body, because I knit tighter magic loop than I do on 9-inch circular. This colourway is called Forest Print, I believe. They have a few, they're either called print or long print. So this is Forest Print. It's really, really bonny. It's nice and plain, relatively plain. The toes, heels and cuffs are in Drops Fable in the colourway beige. Imaginatively named, I know. I'm not sure what the numbers are because I don't have the labels to hand, but at least I could remember the names of the colourways. So exactly the same as the Orange Popping Candy ones, but Drops Fable. And these were the other May pair, I think. For June, I also did another pair in Drops Fable in an almost the same colourway. The heels and toes are the same. So again, I used beige for toes and heels. And for the body of the sock, this one I think it's called, is it Beach Print? I'm not sure what this one is called. I will put the name up on the screen. It's something like that, but it's got these bonny like soft blues and beiges and tans and stuff like that. And again, just some plain vanilla socks. I quite like commercial sock yarns that aren't too patterned and quite busy. Sometimes I like a busy sock yarn, but I do like the ones that have a bit of interest and colour but aren't too higgledy-piggledy, unless I'm in the mood, which is not that often. So that was my first pair for June, and I also knit another pair for June. These ones were using leftover sock yarn from a pair of socks I knit for my husband. So these are my tiger socks. Now my husband's look completely different to this. I have done the plain undyed contrast like the Popping Candy, so Regia for toes and heels and the merino bamboo for the cuff. Exactly the same technique, but this tiger stripe yarn, I only had 30 something grams left after knitting my husband's giant feet socks. So what I've done is, where there was stripes that were like the white, the undyed, I've added in extra undyed yarn. So when I came to a white section, I would drop the tiger yarn and I would add in a couple of extra stripes of the white. And I varied it up. Sometimes there'd be like 2 rows, sometimes 3 or 4 rows, just to bulk out how much yarn I had for the body. I knew that I needed the white to make up around 1/3 of the yarn of the body of the sock, not including the contrast toes and heels. So I kind of worked that out. So every 21 rows, in amongst that had to be 7 rows of white undyed yarn, and it worked out really well. I have very little left over of this yarn. I'm not sure if I have it here with me. Yeah, this is all I have left, so I could have added a little bit more in, but I had enough and it worked out really well. You can kind of see with that there's quite a lot more of the orange and stuff in this yarn than there is in my socks. But I'm happy with it. I've used up another ball of yarn, half ball of yarn, and gained another pair of socks. So I now have some tiger socks. My husband's, I actually, what's it called when you stitch over the top? No, not double stitch. Brain. Duplicate stitched. I duplicate stitched some little claws, like little lines, little toe claws on my husband's. I don't know yet. I might do that for mine. I haven't decided yet. I might. We'll see how I feel. Well, that is my second pair of socks for June. I have to decide which ones to do for July. What yarns to use for July. I have a couple in mind. I'm thinking about a pair of bluey coloured socks. I have like a dusky blue. And I have a pattern that's got kind of a wave design in it. So I might do a pair of like beachy wavy sort of socks. I don't know, I like vanilla socks, but sometimes it's nice to vary it up a little bit. So that is my socks. So I have two more knitting projects, and then we'll get into sewing. So I picked up an older project because I have a few in hibernation and I'd like to try and get through them. So I'm trying to kind of alternate them a little bit with my ongoing projects. I'm not having a huge amount of success with this cardigan, not in knitting it, but in actually picking it up and doing it, because I'm not enjoying working on it, to be honest. I don't know why. I think maybe, I don't know if it's the yarn, I don't know if it's the needle size, because I am working with, is it 6mm needles? I think they're 6mm needles. Yep. And I'm just not in the mood for knitting back and forth on a big cardigan on chunky needles, because it hurts my hands. So this is a combination project. So it is a big chunky autumn, well, it doesn't have to be worn in the autumn, but it's brown cardigan in like a light beigey brown, and I am working on one of the sleeves. I have knit to sort of minimum length. It really is minimum length. It's a little bit short. I'm pretty sure I will have enough yarn, but it is past waist length. It's a reasonable length. It is a v-neck. It is knit flat, and it is knit with the button band attached except for around the neckline. I am knitting a garter button band as I go, and I am knitting a waffle stitch in the design, which the pattern I'm working from doesn't have, but I'm adding it in. So I am all tickly. It's too many fibres. So the pattern is an adapted version of the Bly cardigan by Brain. It is by Amy Christophers. My printer was having a bad day, so apologies, but it is just a plain v-neck top down cardigan, raglan cardigan. So what I'm doing is I've completely changed the gauge, because this is supposed to be knit with a 20 stitch gauge. I'm knitting it as a chunky size with Drops Alaska, again in the colourway beige, and I'm doing on 6mm needles. I did something very similar a few years ago. I did the exact same cardigan on 7mm needles in the same yarn, but knit that plain. And it's one of those big cozy throw-on cardigans that when it's chilly and you sitting, it's very comfortable. It's like wearing a blanket. It's not so good for everyday like pottering around and doing the laundry in, but it's great if you're just kind of relaxing and chilling. But when I came to do this one, I decided to go down a needle size because I thought the stitch definition would be better, and it did. It looked better when I did my swatch. So I am working on it, I am nibbling at it, and I'm currently just knitting the sleeve straight, which I think I might do. I don't know whether I'll do all the way down. I'm tempted, but I'm a bit worried about running out of yarn before I can get the length I want on the cardigan, because this waffle stitch is taking up more yarn obviously than the stockinette cardigan I made before. I'm basically using the smallest size on this on a large gauge, which is exactly what I did before. So this cardigan is going to be smaller than my charcoal one, but the charcoal one is big. And yeah, so that's what I'm doing with the pattern. I've inserted this waffle stitch, which is basically 2 rows of stockinette and then 2 rows of, on the right side, knit 1, purl 2, and then on the wrong side is purl 1, knit 2. So you get this waffle stitch. If it will focus. Hello, focus. Yeah, so you get this waffle stitch. It's really, really simple. It's very easy to memorize and read your work, and I've just adapted it slightly at the raglans so that it looks right as it gains new pattern repeats. So yeah, I'm just working on it. I'm nibbling at it when I could be bothered. Apologies for the knitting needles hitting my tripod. But that is my out of hibernation project. But of course I couldn't resist casting on a new project. So 1 second, because I put this almost out of reach. Whoop. I just had to catch you because my knitting caught on my tripod leg and my camera nearly went flying. So I cast on a new project, and it's already mostly done, so apologies for not recording earlier. So I've cast on a colourwork yoke sweater and I love it. I am so happy with this. This is pretty, and it is pink. I know. What is wrong with me? My last sweater was pink as well. I don't know where this pink thing's coming from. So this sweater, this one is a Caitlin Hunter sweater. Trying to get my pattern, which I haven't got on the front page, so I don't want to show you the pattern because it is a paid for pattern. Let me find the front cover. There we go. It is the Easy V sweater, and I loved this when she first brought it out. I still love it. I did the Halloo sweater, which is similar in that, but that has a lace yoke, and if you see my previous episode, you'll have seen that one finished as well. This one is almost exactly the same in construction, the only difference being the colourwork rather than a lace yoke. On the previous one, on the Halloo sweater, I did one size smaller for the V-neck rib because it tends to be quite very, goodness me, grammar, very open neckline. Even with the one I've done with one size smaller, I'm wishing I had done 2 sizes smaller because it's going to be a little tricky to wear, and because it's made with more hair in it, to wear it without a top underneath, and getting the right top to wear it over the top of is going to be tricky. But I don't know, maybe I could pull out, I don't think I could pull out the neckline and redo it. I think it'd be an absolute pain in the bum. So this time I did 2 sizes smaller for the v-neck, and I'm really happy that I did. Did I increase for the yoke? I think I just increased before I got to the yoke after doing the v-neck. It has been a few weeks since I started this. The yoke is all done in my own hand spun yarns, and I think they look fabulous. It's quite a low contrast yoke anyway. Well, Caitlin Hunter's is a bit more higher contrast, but she uses spin cycle yarns, which is basically like hand spun yarn. It wants to focus on my blanket. Why does it think my blanket is a face? So it's more high contrast on her yoke, but I'm quite liking low contrast colourwork at the moment. I have plans for a quite low contrast yoke down the line in completely different colours, but I really love how this hand spun has worked up. I've used 2 shades of peach and 1 shade of pink. I will show the yarns in the moment, and the body is almost done. It's again at minimum body length, and then I'm knitting the sleeves, and once I've finished the sleeves I will go back and determine the length I want the body to be, and also how much yarn I have left over, because I would rather run out of yarn and have to knit a slightly short cardigan sweater that I can wear over dresses than the sleeves be a length that I'm not happy with. The yarns, I have such a pile beside me now. The yarns are a mixture. So for the colourwork section, like I said, I've used 3 hand spun yarns. I've used this Peaches and Cream. It's quite chunky. This is much chunkier than the main yarn, which is a DK weight, which is why the yoke is quite textured, and I'm very happy with it. This one is a hand dyed by me, naturally dyed, with I'm assuming madder. This I dyed years ago, so I'm not sure what I used, but it's peach, so I'm suspecting it's dyed with madder. This one is not dyed by me. Oh, and it's attached. Be careful, I've just started the colour work on the sleeves. This one is a bat that I made from various fibres, but it has got sparkle in it, and it is more of a pinky peach, which not darker but richer in colours than the other one. And the third yarn is this hand spun that it will not focus, hello, there we go, that came from a braid created by LCB, and I think this colourway is called Briar Rose or something like that, and I'm using from the centre where all the more pinky colours are rather than the burgundies on the outside, so that's why it's got that bit more contrast. You can see that quite well, especially in the top of the yoke just here. It's kind of like got darker pinks and slightly burgundy tones, and then it goes through into a lighter cool pink, which contrasts really nice with the peach colours. So you have the pink, and then you've got the light peach, and then you've got the richer peach, and then back into the pink. Really happy. The main yarn is some of my hand dyed yarn from when I still had my shop open, and it is in this cool, if it will focus, hello camera, this kind of cool, I would say it's not quite light, not quite mid pink, and it's a semi-solid, and I'm really pleased with how it is working up in the body as well. I'm alternating skeins so there isn't too much pooling, and very happy with it. This has been knit on a 3.75mm needle, which is not one I use very often. I think my bubble cardigan, my Stephen West cardigan, was done on the same size as well. So I did have the needles, fortunately, to hand. It has got sparkle in the yoke. There's like little bits of gold stellina sticking up. It's very pretty. So there's my new cast on, and hopefully next episode it will be finished. The fit is very nice, although there's extra bulk from the hand spun, I think it's going to be okay. The only concern I have, which I'm sure will block out, is where the bottom of the v-neck is, the colour work has a little, it kind of sticks out a little bit because of the way the v-neck has shaped it. I'm hoping that will just kind of relax during the blocking process. Sewing. Let's get to sewing, and then I'll get to briefly to acquisitions and then chatter. So sewing, I have been on a sewing kick. I know, it's weird. If you've been here a while, if you're new here, this will be news to you, but if you've been here a while, I don't like sewing. It's okay. I prefer, you know, if you sew a quilt, which I haven't done for quite a long time because I don't enjoy sewing, but the after bit, when you're hand sewing the top stitching and what have you, that it's fine. I find that perfectly fine. The actual sewing machine part of sewing, I don't enjoy. I do not enjoy sewing. It's one of those crafts that I can do, so therefore I will do it when I need to, but it's not something I get any enjoyment out of. But for some reason, the last few weeks I've been enjoying sewing on my sewing machine, and I don't know where it's come from or why, but for some reason, I don't know, maybe because my sewing machine is set up, kind of semi set up, and it's not a hassle so much to like kind of do stuff. I don't know. So I have sewn 2 and 2-part dresses, and I don't know where it's come from. So what I'm wearing is my only finished object for this episode, and it is sewing. I will put some footage up on the screen somewhere and to show you what the dress looks like in full, so I don't have to stand up. It is the Hinterland dress by So Liberated, and I put off buying this pattern for years because everybody made the Hinterland dress. I thought, no, I'm not gonna, everybody else does Hinterland, I'm not gonna do a Hinterland dress. But I was looking for a dress pattern for a different fabric which I have also made a dress from, but I'm not wearing it currently because it is in the laundry basket. Perhaps I will wear that next episode. But I made a hinterland dress in this brushed, it's not quite tartan, not quite plaid fabric. It's a nice brushed cotton. It's very cozy and I absolutely love it. It has the short sleeve version on this one, and it is lengthwise somewhere between, well, it's not somewhere between, it is somewhere between the long version of the hinterland and the short. I didn't have enough fabric to do the full long version, but I also didn't want to make it as short as the shortest version, so I made my skirt as long as the fabric that I had. So I think it's around 4 to 6 inches long, but then the short version of the hinterland dress. This isn't my first one. The first one I made was in the other fabric, and it has the longer sleeves and it also has the longer skirt, and I wouldn't say I prefer it. I think I like both. I would like this dress slightly longer. Another couple of inches would have been better, but it was just how much fabric that I had. The previous one that I made is done in a slightly stretchy, very fine corduroy with it's in black with little rose prints on it, little red roses, and the fit is lovely. But when I came to do this one, I decided I would go up a size because the other one had a bit of stretch in it. I was a bit worried this one would feel snug. The other one doesn't feel snug, but I thought if it was in a fabric that had no stretch in it, it might, you know, when you're moving and you're twisting and you're reaching for stuff, it might feel like it was like kind of tugging on the fabric, and I didn't want that, so I went up a size. And when I do the next one, I think I will adapt somewhere between the two. This one has been through the wash, and actually it shrunk. I did pre-shrink my fabric, but it has shrunk a little bit, and I'm glad I went up the sizes. But the neckline on this larger size is deeper than the neckline on the previous one, and I think I prefer the neckline on the smaller size. I don't know why dress patterns or clothing patterns seem to think that the bigger you are, the lower you want your neckline. Why? So they make everything bigger everywhere. Like openings on a neckline, fine, but why would you need it deeper? It's like, because I'm bigger I want to flash more chest. I don't know, maybe when I was younger. I'm not so bothered now, but I would have preferred a high neckline, so I get quite cool here. We live in a cool climate, so having a slightly neckline would be advantageous. So I really like this, especially now that it's washed and it's shrunk slightly, because before I felt it was a little bit, not tent-like, but it was slightly bigger than I would have liked. Especially the skirt, I felt, because there was more fabric in it, it was a little bit, not bulky, but a little bigger than I would have preferred. And I planned to do use the smaller size for the skirt next time, but to be honest, now that it's shrunk slightly, it's perfect. And I think I would determine what sizes to use for the pattern based upon the fabrics that I'm going to use. So a stretchy fabric, I would definitely do a smaller size. Something that's going to sit quite stiff on the skirt, I would do a smaller size skirt so it doesn't sit too bulkily. Something with drape is fine in the bigger skirt because it's just going to hang straight down anyway. So I think I will determine that, but I may change the neckline and use the smaller the curve of the smaller neckline for dresses down the line. And I do have other dress fabrics that I'm planning to make more hinterlands with, because honestly it is a really good pattern. I don't know why I held back so long. The pockets are a bit low. I'm going to raise the pockets on the skirt next time, because the skirt, the pockets are almost on my hip, like on my thighs. That's a bit low. I have short arms. But the instructions were very, very clear. I think there was only one mistake, and it's right at the end, and it's not really relevant. It was very clear, very easy to follow, and that's in contrast to a dress that I'm currently working on. I'm making the zero waist gather dress. I have made a zero waist gather top before, and this the dress that I'm working on has been in the whips pile for a couple of years, and mostly because I got stuck on how to do the pockets. The pockets are really stupid. The instructions for fitting the pockets on the zero waist gather dress are ridiculous. It just makes no sense. Especially because I'm doing French seams on that dress, and it's just overcomplicated. The instructions for the pockets on this are really easy. It doesn't take into account French seams, but I have a good video, that YouTube tutorial that I follow for French seam pockets in a side seams of a skirt. Very, very simple. I'll follow that in future because the zero waist pockets are stupid. So I'm working on that, and I'm adjusting the neckline on that because the neckline is rubbish on that as well. It is a deep contrast to this pattern, so we'll definitely make more of them. That was a lot of waffling on. I do apologise. I'm going to move on to acquisitions and chatter next. I'm trying to keep this podcast relatively short, but I never have any success because I keep leaving it too long between episodes, so apologies for that. I'm only going to briefly touch on acquisitions because it's not exciting acquisitions. I had a couple of reasons for buying yarn. One was I was short of something. I don't even remember what it was I was short of now, but I needed something from Wool Warehouse. So obviously I had to make up my order so I'd get free shipping. So I ordered yarn because what else are you going to do? So I did order some other patterned Drops Fable. I haven't brought that with me because I forgot. But you'll see it soon, I'm sure, because I've been knitting socks all year. But I also ordered some Halloween coloured sock yarns for Halloween sock knitting, obviously. I mean, I do have some Halloween sock yarn already. I have half a cake left over of my yarn that I bought from Fibre in Hepzibah's Knickers. I made some socks in this. I don't think it was last autumn. It might have been the autumn before. But I do plan to use this autumn as well. I'm going to make a second pair. And I'm also going to do some other socks, some more stripy socks, because obviously I'm obviously got stripy sock yarn. I'm going to do more stripy sock yarns. May even go so far as to make colourwork Halloween sock yarn. Halloween socks. Oh my god. I've been talking too long. It's all just going gobbledygook now. So I bought some orange and black and purple. I got Drops Fable in orange. I can't remember what there's two oranges and I don't remember which one it is, and black. And I also bought the West Yorkshire Spinners Signature 4-ply in amethyst because they don't have a good Halloween purple in the Drops Fable. This one is a good Halloween purple. It's purple. It's perfect. It's perfect Halloween purple. So I got those for making Halloween knitting things. And then I needed some more needle tips, or I think it was a circular needle. So to make up my order, I ordered more yarns. So these, I ordered some Christmassy yarns. I ordered West Yorkshire Spinners. They're not obviously Christmassy yarns, but I will explain. This one is called Gingerbread House. It was one of their Christmas colourways. It's I suppose it looks like a gingerbread man in some ways. But to go with that, I also bought their Signature 4-ply in amber, which goes nicely with that. Which I will probably do half of this with this, and I will probably use the rest just for a patterned sock. That'll look quite nice. We shall see. And I also bought their 4-ply in spruce, which also contrasts quite nicely with Gingerbread House as well. This is a lot brighter than I was expecting it to be. I thought it would be slightly more spruce-like. It is slightly more 80s sweater green than I would have liked. But it's fine, it's fine, it's socks, it doesn't matter. It is going to look nice with the Gingerbread House, and on its own will make a nice pair of Christmas socks as well. I have a few patterns that have things like tree lace designs in them and stuff, which would look quite nice. So I've bought those, and I also bought some Stylecraft Head Over Heels Show Your Pride yarn. It was in the sale. It's a lovely rainbow sock yarn, and this is in the colourway Be Bold. There we go. It is gorgeous rainbow pride sock yarn, and I did see somebody had knit some socks with this with a bright bubblegum pink contrast toes and heels. I'm very tempted to do something the same. I will have to see what I have in my stash. Not purple, but I think bubblegum pink potentially has the potentially would look really cool. I don't want to do just plain white with this. Maybe as a second pair of socks, but I would like to do something in a bright colour, and I think a pink would look quite nice. So I bought those. Oh, so other than the other sock yarns that I forgot to bring, again, but they're just Drops Fable in random pattern printed yarns. What else have we been up to? Well, I did tell you last time that we were doing the spare bedroom upstairs ready for guest season, and we did get that finished fabulously. It is looking really good. I'm really happy with it, and we decided to start doing the landing as the next project, a small one in between when we finished the spare bedroom and working on before guests started arriving. And we thought, oh, it's not too big a job. We've got to lift the floor, do some structural work on the struts underneath. We'd already done that in the spare room, so it was just more of the same. And then build a cupboard on the landing, frame it out, plasterboard, polyfiller paint, job done. Well, John had an accident. If you're squeamish, I will try not to go into too much detail, but let's just say he lost a fight with a circular saw blade. He was very, very lucky. He didn't lose any limbs or digits, but it was a close call. It didn't cut across anywhere, so we were lucky. He had gloves on, leathery, like fabricy leather gloves, and it I'm trying to describe this without being too gruesome, but it cut through across the knuckle, so but down the side of the knuckle, so we were lucky. It didn't do any damage to the usability of his hand, put it that way. He did need stitches. He had like 5 stitches, and it did take a slither of bone from the side of the knuckle, but again, because it was the side, it hasn't stopped him from, well, he's stiff at the moment, but it doesn't stop his mobility, which he was very, very lucky. Very lucky. It was horrible at the time. He come charging down the stairs. I've cut my finger off. Oh my god, I was in total panic mode. I'm running around the house like I saw him running under the towel. Oh my god, having the horrors. I'm running around the house trying to find a waddy type of bandage to catch the blood. But I had nothing. All I had was like ones you'd put on a wound afterwards. Nothing that would actually kind of contain whilst you go to the A&E. So I managed to find, oh, what a carry on. Then I had to obviously drive him to A&E. We're about half an hour from the hospital. So we went there. We were there for a few hours. They were great. We had a good natter with the consultant nurse. He's actually one of our local farmers. His nursing is kind of part-time to his farming, which is kind of typical for Orkney. So we were all talking about cattle farming. So it was quite, it was fairly chill, and yeah, he managed to get away with some stitches basically, and yeah, it's quite stiff at the moment, and we think he's going to go back to the doctor to get it checked out. But that was a few weeks ago, so it did kind of doing the landing on hold for a couple of weeks until he was back up to doing building and construction work, which was really hard for him because he's not used to not being able to do stuff. It was very frustrating for a few days. Couldn't use his hand very well and such like. So yes, that kind of put us back a little bit, but we did manage to get the basic bones of the landing finished. We did the floor, put carpet down, built the frame and the plasterboarding of the cupboard, but it still needs finishing. It still needs polyfilling and painting and stuff, but we were a bit behind time at that point. So it was a bit of excitement, but not the nice sort of excitement. Other things, I've been working on, I suppose this is almost in whips as well. I've been working on making a muslin. I've actually finished a muslin of my sister's wedding dress. My sister, if you know Orkney, she and her partner have Orkney Overlanders. They have a big Leyland Daff huge army truck converted into a camper, which they travel the world in, and they are Orkney Overlanders. Well, they're getting married later this summer, and I'm going to be making Charlotte's wedding dress. So I did make up a muslin for the dress made out of random curtain pieces, fabrics, and sent that off. So hopefully in the next couple of days she can get back to me on checking the fit and what have you before I make up the actual dress. It's going to be fabulous. It's going to be dark rich green, so, and lace and stuff. It's going to be fabulous, and it's very much more bohemian style, and yeah, it's going to be lovely. I also have to sort out, I'm supposed to be officiating as well. They're doing the legal part in a registry office, and then they're having like the family kind of thing the day after. So I'm going to be doing a little ceremony and what have you, but I need to get my finger out and get that sorted out as well. It's been busy. My youngest is visiting. We have not been able to go anywhere because the weather has been absolutely rubbish. I think it's been rubbish most of the UK, but it's been especially rubbish this far north. It was 12 degrees the other day, feels like 11. I'm having to put the heating on most days. Today is the nicest day we've had all month. It's supposed to get up to 19 today, although there's still a lot of cloud about at the moment. So I am planning on going somewhere. We'll go to a beach somewhere. But it has been absolutely rubbish. It's been cold, it's been wet. My potatoes have blight in June. In June! They don't usually get blight till August, but they have blight. So I'm not holding out much hope for my potato harvest this year. Yeah, it's been crap. But British weather, it's been crap everywhere apparently, although particularly crap and colder the further north you get. So yeah, I'll be glad when the weather finally breaks and we get some nice weather. And today I think is a one-off up here. It's supposed to be nice. They're getting a heat wave down south. I'm very envious. They'll all be complaining at 30-degree weather. I'm like, yeah, but 30-degree weather's nice when all you've had is 11 and the 12s for weeks. Yeah, that sounds very nice to me. Today, although it's going to be warm, it's going to be muggy because of all the rain we've had for weeks. So I'm not entirely sure it'll be that pleasant, but it'll be nice at the beach. Other than that, I'm not sure. I have plans for the future, but most of them are getting ready for the wedding, making the dress, sorting out the ceremony, all the plans around that. Fortunately, I'm just a sister, so I don't have to do any major plans. I'm going to leave that to the mothers. Mother and his mother. They can worry about things like food. I don't mind. I'll chop some stuff. I've done all this for my own wedding. That's not my job. The wedding and the officiating, that's my job. The rest can come later. I'm planning to take my car down and camp in it. If you've seen previous videos, you'll see I converted my car into a car camper a couple of years ago. It is currently in car mode, so it needs taking back to camper mode and travelling down to the Scottish mainland and driving down on the mainland, which I don't really do. So I have to get over my kind of little fear and phobia of driving on the mainland and take it down and sleep in my car. And hopefully it will be a fun weekend, whatever. I'm not a drinker. Occasionally, but I don't really drink very often, and everyone else will be big Scottish drinkers, so I think I'll probably be sneaking off relatively early to go to sleep because I'm not an all-nighter. I'm a go to bed at 9:30 in the evening kind of a girl. Other than that, not really anything happened. Just the usual. And I think I'll probably leave it there, because this is going to be, looking at my camera, it's going to be a longer one. It's going to take hours to upload, but we do what we have to do. So I shall see you on the next episode, and hope you have a lovely summer. Bye for now.